Wednesday, everybody. Hope you're having a good day today so far. Having a good week. Um, so I don't really have any updates about what's going on in my life or anything. Uh, Pretty slow day at work yesterday. Spent the majority of the time with nothing to do and started working on my episode for Friday. So I'm looking forward to doing that one. Um, but let's just get right into it because there's several things that I want to get to today. So today's daily promises, but the salvation of the righteous is of the Lord. He is their strength in the time of trouble. And the Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them because they trust in him. Psalm 37, verses 39 through 40. In simple eloquence, the psalmist describes the beauty and strength of our Almighty God. By his graciousness, God's everlasting righteousness is our refuge during times of grave trial and tribulation. What a wonderful comfort! It is breathtaking to consider his love. He is our unrelenting rock and the deliverer of all things. Let us rejoice forever in the knowledge of Christ's saving hand and his reassuring promise of deliverance. I think that's a good thing to look forward to. Um, I know anytime um, I have a lot of thoughts on these verses that we do every time. It always leads back to it works with looking at what you're dealing at right now in society. And it really does. Because really, the only reason that we're getting through it is through His grace. I mean, there's a lot of people that haven't been able to handle what's going on, a lot of suicides, a lot of people turning to alcohol and drugs because they don't have any hope. And so they don't know what to turn to, and they end up doing uh, things that are destructive to themselves and to their families as well, because it doesn't just affect them, it affects their families, their friends, society in general, honestly. So they don't have hope. They have nothing to look forward to. And that's actually quite sad when you think about it. Um, so, speaking on sadness, I didn't intend to, you know, segue into it this way. But if you didn't know, Norm Macdonald died. He was 61 years old. I've seen a lot of people questioning, oh, he died from COVID. Did he get COVID? No, he had cancer. And he'd had cancer for 9 years. So that's something he's been dealing with for a really long time. And it finally just, he couldn't battle any longer. So if you don't know, he's a cast member from Saturday Night Live, the older versions of it before they went totally stupid. I've never really liked Saturday Night Live, but there was a time when they actually had actual comedians on the show, and now all they have are activists. So it's kind of weird to look at it now. It does very poorly these days. Um, but it says that he had been fighting cancer for nearly a decade but was determined to keep his struggle away from family, friends, and fans. He was most proud of his comedy, and this is his friend Lori Jo Hawk, Hawkstra. I don't know how you say that name. Who was with Macdonald when he passed. He never wanted the diagnosis to affect the way the audience or any of his loved ones saw him. Norm was a pure comic. He once wrote that a joke should catch someone by surprise, it should never pander. He certainly never pandered. Norm will be missed terribly. So, as highlighted by page 6, the Quebec City native wrote for the show. Roseanne appeared on the Drew Carey Show and then became a household name with his deadpan humor of for NSL's Weekend Update. In 1998, he was fired from the show and appeared in multiple movies. Macdonald, who never graduated high school, published a book in 2016 based on his life titled Based on a True Story, Not a Memoir. The scariest part about writing a book is I have no education, and so I really feel like to be a good writer, you need education. My son has an education. He's much better writer than I am, and he's only 20. Most recently, the comic hosted a Netflix show aptly titled Norm Macdonald Has a Show. In 2019, Macdonald notably targeted cancel culture when SNL fired comedian Shane Gillis from the cast. Of course, you know this means for, Macdonald wrote on Twitter at the time, captioning a report on Gillis's firing. The post became Macdonald's pinned tweet for some time. When news hit the internet of Macdonald's passing, social media blew up with memories from the comedian's work. Writer David Gardner notably recalled a comment from Macdonald concerning battles with cancer. Quote, I'm pretty sure I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure if you die, the cancer dies at the same time. That's not a loss, that's a draw, the comedian said in a stand up special. Um, Fellow comedians weighed in on the death Monday. Quote, I'm absolutely devastated about Norm Macdonald. Norm had the most unique comedy voice I have ever encountered, and he was so relentlessly and uncompromisingly funny, said Conan O'Brien. I will never laugh that hard again. I'm so sad for all of us today. Yeah, he does his voice. It is very unique. I mean, you could just barely hear a clip of that voice, and I think most people would know who he is. Seth Rogen said, I was a huge fan of Norm, and I essentially ripped off his delivery when I first started acting. I would stay up specifically to watch him on talk shows. He was the funniest guest of all time. We lost a comedy giant today, one of the all time greats. RIP. In every important way in the world of stand up, Norm was the best, an opinion shared by me and all peers. Always up to something, never certain until his matter of fact delivery leveled you, wrote David Letterman. I was always delighted by his bizarre mind and earnest gaze. I'm trying to avoid using the phrase twinkle in his eyes. He was a lifetime Cy Young winner in comedy, gone but impossible to forget. Comedian Jim Gaffigan wrote, Oh my God, we lost a legend. Norm was punishingly funny, a unique special point of view, and completely organic. R.I.P. Norm Macdonald. No one could make you break like Norm Macdonald, hilarious and unique. And that was Jon Stewart. And Steve Martin said, We loved Norm Macdonald, one of a kind. So, not that I'm not really, I mean, I do like comedians. I don't watch them a lot. There's very few that I watch. It's just not really my thing. Like to just sit down and look for comedy to watch. Um, but I have seen him in a few things, and I've always thought he's been pretty funny. And I think also, I think the first time I'd ever seen something with him in it, and he wasn't technically in it, I'm pretty sure he voiced the dog in Doctor Dolittle. I'm pretty sure. Um, and that's where I remember first ever learning about who he was. God, that was a long time ago. Um, so yeah, condolences to his family because it's always sad to lose somebody. All right, moving on. Let's talk about AOC. I can't stand this woman. Um, First of all, let's just read the article and let's see if she brings it up, and then I'll give you my opinion on it. So AOC, she wore a dress that said "tax the rich" on it. It is good to note that her earrings cost $450 and her shoes cost $600. I'm pretty sure the cost of her earrings cost more than my entire wardrobe and my shoes combined. I guarantee you, I don't even own enough clothes to even make. Well, okay, I might. It depends. I do have a lot of stuff that was bought like at garage sales, thrift stores, so I don't know. They may cost more than my wardrobe. Um, so AOC wore a dress emblazoned "Tax the Rich" to Monday's Met Gala, but she was also wearing earrings reputedly valued at $450 and shoes reportedly valued at roughly $614. And I don't know how much the dress cost that she's got on, but I would guarantee you it's in the thousands for sure. The Tax the Rich dress, designed by Aurora James, was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Oh, hundreds of thousands. I was way off. Adding that the 14 karat designer Majuri jewelry, gold hoop earrings were listed at $450, and the open-toed red shoes from James's brother Veli's fashion line were valued at roughly $614. She also carried a James purse that also featured the tax the rich mantra. We can never get too comfortable in our seats at the table once they've been given, James stated, according to Vogue. We must always continue to push ourselves, push our colleagues, push the culture, and push the country forward. Fashion is changing. America is changing. And as far as this theme goes, I think Alexandria and I are a great embodiment of the language fashion needs to consider adding to the general lexicon as we work towards a more sustainable, inclusive, and empowered future. Okay. Do these millionaires not realize that when she says tax the rich, that they are included amongst the rich? Do they not understand that? They are a part of that group. But what they're saying actually is tax the rich, excluding myself. And all the rich people that say tax the rich are saying, yeah, except for me. So when they all say let's do it, but I can't be included in that, then who's the rich? Who do you tax? It doesn't make sense. And in fact, you end up taxing the middle class people far more when you do that. Okay, so taking a look at this chart here, this is from heritage.org. Um, so this is federal income taxes and adjusted gross income, and this is earned in 2018. 12% share of all the income earned of the bottom 50%. So that's anybody making less than $44,000 a year. So the share of all the income taxes paid by the bottom 50%. So the bottom 50% pay 3% in taxes. Then you have your top 25 to 50%. So this is between 44,000 and 87,000. They make up 19% of all shared income, and they pay 10% of the income tax. Your top 10 to 25, which is 87 to 152K, their share of income is 21%, and they pay 16% of the taxes. Your top 5 to 10%, that's 150K to 218K, they make up 11% of the income earned, and they pay 11% of the taxes. Your top 2 to 5%, which is 218K to 540K, make up 16%, and they pay 20% of the income tax. In your top 1%, which is 540K plus, so anybody making over that, is 21% of the earned income shared, and they pay 40% of the income tax. And this was in 2018. So they made up less percentage of the shared income, but they paid double what even the top 2 to 5% paid in taxes. And if you compare, so most of America, I would say, would be in the bottom 50%, where most middle class, working class people, we're paying 3%, and the richest people are paying 40%. And we're saying tax them more. You can only tax people so much before they pull their businesses out of the country and move it overseas because they're tired of being taxed way more. And I honestly, I don't think anybody should be taxed any higher than what we already are. In fact, I think it needs to go back down. It's way too much. Um, so the fact that they only earn 21% of all the U.S. income, but they pay 40% of all the taxes, it it doesn't make any sense. Now, I would assume that AOC, I don't know what a congresswoman makes, but I would assume that she's between the top 25 and yeah, I would say she's between the I don't know. I don't know how much they make. She's at least in the 25 to 50% range, but it wouldn't surprise me if she's in the top 10 to 25% because they just gave themselves a raise, so I don't know. But she definitely isn't hurting. AOC stated in a press release, quote, "Despite being held in New York City, the culture of the Met Gala is everything but. NYC is often synonymous with inclusivity, inviting millions of people from different walks of life to call this city home. The Met Gala, on the other hand, is seen as elite and inaccessible. That's because it is. I'm attending today because I want to change just that and spotlight women of color who are often not included during events like these." And that's not true. There's plenty of women of color that I'm sure Oprah attends, Beyonce attends, Rihanna probably attends. I can't think of any other stars because I just don't like them, but that's not true. AOC complained on Instagram that she was criticized more harshly because she's a woman, writing, "I am so used to doing the same exact thing that men do, including popular male progressive elected officials, and getting a completely different response." AOC took to her Instagram story to show off the spike in the tax the rich term on Google. "Surge in people looking up and discussing our effed up tax code is and how we fix it so we can fund childcare, health care, climate action, and student loan forgiveness for all. Aurora James understood the assignment," she wrote. QNS noted. AOC tweeted in May 2019, "When we say tax the rich, we mean nesting doll yacht rich, for profit prison rich, Betsy DeVos student loan shark rich, trick the country into war rich." Well, then that's most of your politicians right there. Subsidizing workforce with food stamps rich, because that kind of rich is simply not good for society and it's like 10 people. And that's not true. And if you go look up any of Ben Shapiro's shows where he talks about this stuff, he can show you that the 1% is constantly changing. People move into it, people move out of it. He's been included in the 1% before, and he's been moved out of it before. So it goes back and forth. It's not a fixed set of people. Yes, some people are definitely fixed, but there are people that can move in and out of that range constantly. And it's not bad for society because that's those kinds of people that like with corporations, Amazon, Microsoft, whatever, regardless of what you think about their ideology, their businesses generate the economy because they're putting out all the risk, they're hiring people, paying people, giving people jobs, getting people the things that they need, and it keeps the economy moving. You need people to invest their money into businesses to give people more jobs. That's really how an economy works. So, the legendary writer Tom Wolfe wrote in his iconic essay, Radical Chic, which mocked the liberal elites of New York City. From the beginning, it was pointless to argue about the sincerity of radical chic. Unquestionably, the basic impulse, red diaper or otherwise, was sincere, but as in most human endeavors focused upon an ideal, there seemed to be some double track thinking going on. On the first track, well, one does have a sincere concern for the poor and the underprivileged and an honest outrage against discrimination. On the other hand, on the second track in one's mind, that is, one also has a sincere concern for maintaining a proper East Side lifestyle in New York society, and this concern is just as sincere as the first and just as deep. It really is. It really does become part of one's psyche. For example, one must have a weekend place in the country or by the shore all year round, preferably, but certainly from the middle of May to the middle of September. It is hard to get across to outsiders an understanding of how absolute such apparently trivial needs are. One feels them in his solar plexus. So obviously, she's being mocked, and rightfully so. Now, let's not forget that the ticket to the Met Gala is $30,000. $100,000 for the dress. So now you're at $130,000. So you're looking between like $131,000 for her to attend this gala, okay? Um, Individual tickets are reportedly priced at $30,000 apiece, a far cry from when Vogue editor-in-chief Anna Wintour first took over the running of the event in 1995 when they were just 1,000. Then there are the tables, typically bought by brands and fashion houses. These reportedly start at $275,000. AOC was widely mocked and criticized online, including by her supporters, for the stunt. So E.J. Dickinson, a senior writer at Rolling Stone, tweeted, "Am I the only one who thinks this is really stupid? Number one, the dress is ugly. Number two, she's at a 35,000 per person event, and this isn't nearly the own she thinks it is. Number three, the dress is ugly. I mean, I love her, but come on, this is so dumb. Peak girl boss." Glenn Greenwald, a progressive blogger, tweeted, "Lots of people commenting snidely on the lack of masks and social distancing in this opulent indoor event in the middle of a pandemic, but as was true of Obama's indoor bash, COVID wasn't invited to that Met Gala, and these are the sophisticated people who aren't in danger." Yeah, if you'll notice that all the petty servants had to wear their masks, even if they were vaccinated. But, of course, the elitist masters got to go around without masks. And I bet you some of them weren't even vaccinated. Dan Crenshaw of Texas said, "I'm not even mad at the lack of self awareness or hypocrisy anymore. At this point, it's just hilarious. These people are a giant joke." Definitely. Donald, Donald Trump Jr. tweeted, "What makes AOC a bigger fraud? The tax the rich dress while she's hanging out with a bunch of wealthy left wing elites, or the lack of mask after spending the past 18 months as one of the biggest authoritarian mask Karens in the country?" Yep. Stephen Taylor, a political commentator, tweeted, "This is such a political miscalculation. It's quite amazing to be watching it in real time." Well, no one ever said that AOC was smart. Jacques, political commentator, said, "I thought maybe the progressives were being too harsh on AOC lately, but nope, they were right, LMAO. Lisa Booth, a Fox News commentator, "Outside of AOC being tone deaf and a complete hypocrite, the dress is ugly." Yeah, it is ugly. Scott Lincecum, Cato Institute, tweeted, "Really looking forward to the Versace guillotine sponsored by Boeing." Senator Ted Cruz, "Cost per ticket, $30,000. Virtue signaling to your base while partying without a mask with the people you claim to hate? Priceless." Um, I'm going to butcher this name, but Batya Ungar Sargon, Newsweek editor, "If you spent your whole life trying, you couldn't come up with a better illustration of woke progressivism as smokescreen for class that perpetuates inequality than the progressive avatar at the pinnacle of conspicuous consumption being feted with a cheeky slogan across her back." Dan McLaughlin, National Review senior writer, whatever AOC is doing, it is not populism." And last but not least, Stephen Miller, a political commentator, tweeted, "You know who isn't at the Met Gala? Joe Manchin." There you go. Um, and there was this long thing on Twitter that she posted about her, "Oh, this, and I'm a woman of color." And then she decides to throw in there that she is a working class woman. No, she's not. She is not a working class woman. She does absolutely nothing for the money she makes except be a puppet and a useful idiot to the ones in control. That's not working class. So, nice try. And people are really starting to have a lot of disdain for AOC. She definitely is tone deaf and she's just ignorant. And I don't know if that's well, I don't know because she has an education, but it's not doing her any good because she clearly wasn't paying attention or she just figured she doesn't need to use it. I don't know. People need to understand that when they say tax the rich, you can't really tax so much more than they're already being taxed. You're gonna end up losing the businesses here and moving them to China and places like that, wherever they're gonna move them to. You can't do that. And these people need to stop advocating for it. And don't forget, taxing the rich more, it puts a burden on the actual middle class, working class people. Because when they have to pay more taxes, they charge more for their product or their services, which means we have to pay more. And there's already super high inflation, and that's really going to be bad. So let's stop pretending that this is about anything other than just trying to slide us into socialism. So I hate to report this. This is from republicworld.com, but Gavin Newsom wins the recall election in California. Now, what's weird is last night, only about an hour after the polls closed, they called uh, the win for Newsom, and he went up and gave a speech and everything when there was only 60% of the votes in, which were highly Democrat mail-in ballots. Most Republicans went and voted same day at a voting station. Um, do I think it would have made a difference? So this is run completely legit with 60% of the vote in. Do I think that Republicans could have pulled in enough numbers day of voting to win out? I have no idea because I don't really know what's going on. I was watching Charlie Kirk's live stream last night and they were kind of going over everything. But they did say that regardless of the win or loss here in California, the numbers that we're seeing that are leaning more to the right lately is a good sign for 2022. Because in 2017 in California, and don't quote me on these numbers because I could be wrong, I can't remember exactly, but I'm giving as best as my memory can recall. In 2017, independents in California leaned right about 26%. So 26% of independents in California leaned Republican. But in 2020, that was a 7 point difference, and I think it was 31. So 2017 might have been lower than 26. So I know that he said 7 points difference in 2020. Um, so that's about 33% independents leaned Republican in 2020. And unless I'm off and it was 31%, then take away 7, and that's what you had in 2017. So the numbers are leaning towards us. There is a huge grassroots movement that is moving towards American principles and getting rid of all of these people that are trying to destroy the country. You have football stadiums, college football stadiums across the country, chanting their chant, F Biden. They can't stand him. And these are young people mostly that are going to these games. They're tired of the way that they have been forced to live for the last almost 2 years. They're tired of it. And it's starting to show. And it gives me hope that we can turn this around in 2022. And um, as long as nobody cheats, we should be fine. Um, do I think that there was some cheating going on in California? Yes, I do. Because there's been several Republicans that spoke to media outlets saying that they went in to vote and they were told they had already voted when they hadn't. But you didn't hear any Democrats say that. No Democrats said, oh, they said I already voted. And you could guarantee if a Democrat went in to vote and they were told, oh, you already voted, that they would be shouting that from the rooftops because they would be trying to say that Republicans were cheating. But you didn't hear that. You only heard that problem on the Republican side. So, of course, I believe they cheated. Allegedly, they cheated. I can't prove it, but allegedly. So, in a major victory against Republicans' Trumpism policy, first of all, it's not Trumpism, it's Americanism. The policies that Trump was enforcing are based on American principles and always have been. Anyway, California Governor Gavin Newsom registered victory in a recall aimed at kicking him out of the office early. On the poll day, Newsom said that the battle was all about Democrats' party values in the face of the coronavirus pandemic and continued threats from Trumpism. During the poll, voters were asked two questions. Should California governor be recalled? And if so, who should replace him? Only a handful of the 46 names on the replacement ticket had any level of public recognition, but most failed to gain traction with voters. After getting an overwhelmingly response from the public, Newsom, in his victory speech in the state capital of Sacramento, devoted his achievement to the victory of science, women's rights, and other liberal issues. He ensures the nation's most populous state will remain in Democratic control as a laboratory for progressive policies. No, it's not the only thing that was expressed tonight, Newsom added. I want to focus on what we said yes to as a state. We said yes to science. We said yes to vaccines. We said yes to ending this pandemic. And also, you said yes to a lot of your citizens picking up and moving out of the state because that was their hope, and now it's gone, so they're out. Look at all the businesses that have left California, a majority of them moving to Texas because excuse me, because of the policies in California. Why do you think Elon Musk moved Tesla out of California? And I'm I don't know. It doesn't really bother me that he moved it here to Texas. It's good for the economy. It gives people jobs. Um, I don't care either way. So they said that he got the support of 67% compared to 33% who wanted to recall him. Now, since I don't really know how it all works and what the numbers are because I don't know their demographics, but to me, I found it odd that Larry Elder conceded the race when only 70% of the votes had been counted. Maybe that is because there was no way to regain after 70% had already been counted. I don't know. That's why I, I just don't know. I don't know anything about elections and how they run them and count them and all that. But to me, I would not have conceded. I would have waited until all the votes were counted, till 100% were counted, and then concede. But to each his own, I guess. So, I mean, at least I don't live in California. I ain't stuck with him. Um, so let's talk about a Navy football coach who was fired because he refused to get the vaccine. Uh, so it was on Monday. Billy Ray Stutzman, assistant football coach at the Naval Academy, said he has been fired for refusing to receive the COVID-19 vaccine shot. Said the Naval Academy Athletic Association policy regarding COVID-19 requires all coaches and staff to be vaccinated against this virus, Stutzman wrote in a lengthy social media post. Based on my religious convictions and after much thought and prayer, I am unable to follow the requirements of the Naval Academy's COVID-19 policy as it has changed these last few months. After applying for a religious exemption and attempting to further negotiate alternative working arrangements, I was ultimately relieved of my duties here at Navy. I continue to stand firm in my conviction of faith, but I understand and respect that each individual and institution has a choice on how they wish to manage these issues. See, this is where I get mad at people. When they say that they understand and respect these people for their choices about their businesses. I don't see how you could respect that because you are effectively segregating the country. You're vaccinated against your unvaccinated, and you're treating the unvaccinated as less than human because they made a personal choice not to get it. I don't know if anybody knows anything about history. Maybe you weren't taught history in school. I guess it depends on when you went. And I don't always like comparing when people compare these two things, but all I'm going to say is the separating the people of a country and dehumanizing one part of that country led to the Holocaust. It also brought around slavery in America. So that's all I'm saying. Now, I'm not saying that the unvaccinated are going to become slaves because nobody wants to be around them. So, of course, they wouldn't even let them do that. But that is how the Holocaust was brought around. They were treated as subhuman species and killed off, turned in by their neighbors, mistreated, mass genocide. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. I'm not saying it's going to lead to 6 million unvaccinated people being killed. I don't think that is going to happen, but you are seeing kind of the beginning stages of how those kinds of things start. Stutzman was in the third season of coaching the midshipman Navy head coach Ken Numatalalo said his departure was a big loss for the program. He's added a lot to our program, Ken said. Wish him best of luck. He and his wife, Chanel, wonderful young man, got a bright, bright future in this profession. What I would like to know, let's see who he is. So he looks Hispanic to me, number one. So if we were going to go by the left's ideology, them firing a person of color for not being vaccinated, that's a no-no. Um, so that's kind of weird. I do like his Twitter page though. Um, he seems to be very God focused. So yeah. All right. Anyway, as the COVID-19 vaccine has polarized the country, universities and their athletic programs have seen a major push for everyone to be fully vaccinated. Washington State head football coach Nick Rolovich came out with a statement in July saying he would not receive the vaccine, forcing him to participate in Pac-12 media days remotely. After the state of Washington announced a mandate in August requiring employees working in K 12 up to higher education to be vaccinated, Rolovich said he would follow the mandate, though he did not specifically say he would receive the vaccine. The mandate does allow for religious and medical exceptions. His refusal to openly say whether he has taken the shot has caused many in the media to question whether Rolovich should remain the head coach of the Washington State football team. See, this is where it gets dicey because everybody wants people to openly announce that they've been vaccinated or not, and HIPAA laws prevent any medical professional from releasing that information without your permission. And as someone would definitely like to argue with me that the Constitution, the Fifth and the Ninth and the 14th Amendment do not guarantee medical privacy. They say it doesn't. It does. Um, you don't have to release that information. That's why when you start seeing people getting fired for this, you're going to start seeing lawsuits. And I don't know how it would work, but I would assume a whole bunch of people get fired for not being vaccinated. You're going to have a lawyer grab up all these people and do a huge lawsuit against probably the federal government, I would think, because well, I don't know, because they're not technically mandating it. Maybe OSHA. I don't know. We'll get to OSHA in a minute, though. I think I may not be covering OSHA, but I think we are. Anyway, so Paige Cornwall tweeted out Washington State football coach Nick Rolovich, the state's highest paid public employee, hasn't said if he will get a COVID shot, only that he will follow the mandate. This series of questions from Chris Daniels should be shown in journalism classes. Um, so he was asked if whether or not he was vaccinated, and he said, "Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that, Chris. I understand what you guys are trying to get to." Relovic said when he asked whether he had scheduled a COVID shot. So the reporter went on to continue asking Rolovic why he has refused to say whether he has received the vaccine or is applying for a religious or medical exemption, citing that people are upset with his lack of transparency. Well, it's none of their business. All employees working in school facilities will have until October 18th to be fully vaccinated or risk losing their jobs. See how these people on the left think that they have a right to know everything about you, that you have to share everything? No, you don't. And that gets very dicey. So, speaking of OSHA, so there's a congressional research, and they raise questions about OSHA vaccine mandates legality because OSHA doesn't have that authority. So, a new analysis by the Congressional Research Service, Congress's nonpartisan research arm, suggests that Biden's intention to require all workers at companies with at least 100 employees to get vaccinated against COVID 19 might not pass legal muster. On September 9th, Biden said that he would use the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's jurisdiction over workforce safety to require some 80 million workers to get vaccinated against coronavirus or undergo weekly testing. To get around the fact that enacting an OSHA rule typically takes 4 to 7 years, it will use emergency authority known as Emergency Temporary Standards. OSHA may promulgate an ETS without supplying any notice or opportunity for public comment or public hearings. An ETS is immediately effective upon publication in the Federal Register. Upon promulgation of an ETS, OSHA is required to begin the full rulemaking process for a permanent standard with the ETS serving as the proposed standard for this rulemaking. An ETS is valid until superseded by a permanent standard, which OSHA must promulgate within 6 months of publishing the ETS in the Federal Register. Using emergency authority requires that employees are exposed to grave danger, and that such emergency standard is necessary to protect employees from such danger. Well, that shouldn't pass because it's not true. The term grave danger, used in the first mandatory determination for an ETS, is not defined in statute or regulation. The legislative history demonstrates the intent of Congress that the ETS process is not be utilized to circumvent the regular standard setting process, but the history is unclear as to how Congress intended the term grave danger to be defined. OSHA has resorted to emergency rules only sparingly, but in the few cases it has used them, the agency's moves have not stood up well against court scrutiny. Prior to coronavirus, OSHA issued an ETS only 9 times, and courts fully overturned 4 and partially vacated a fifth. In 1984, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit invalidated a 1983 rule on asbestos exposure, saying OSHA did not provide sufficient support for its claim that 80 workers would ultimately die because of exposure to asbestos during the 6-month life of the ETS. It is not enough to show that the coronavirus can be deadly. The second prong, that the measures are necessary to protect employees, requires showing that the measures would meaningfully alter outcomes from workplace-related exposure. In the asbestos case, the court dismissed OSHA's argument that the ETS was necessary, saying that even though asbestos was dangerous, other rules already required respirator use that would have a similar effect. In this case, the government might have to prove that vaccinated employees still face grave danger even though they are vaccinated. In the 1984 asbestos case, the court also indicated that OSHA was using an emergency rule to try to avoid legal scrutiny, writing that fear of a successful judicial challenge to enforcement of OSHA's permanent standard regarding respirator use hardly justifies resort to the most dramatic weapon in OSHA's enforcement arsenal. Until this year, OSHA had not issued an ETS since. In 2006, it considered one over a fake butter chemical that was causing popcorn lung in food workers, but determined it likely could not meet the necessity requirement, since most people were already taking steps to ameliorate the problem on their own. In that case, manufacturers were removing the compound from their products. So the rules are only supposed to last 6 months, but the problem is that there's no reason to think any permanent OSHA rule can be passed during that time period. Of the 4 previous ETS rules that were not overturned by courts, a permanent replacement was issued within or shortly after the 6-month period, but these were all before 1980. Since then, red tape has swelled to the point where this is no longer likely. The courts have never ruled on whether an emergency rule can be extended beyond 6 months, though one 1974 court ruling provides some support for the idea. Another problem is whether a permanent rule can be justified at all. Since any rule must be necessary to protect workers from grave danger, a permanent mandate may not be appropriate since the coronavirus pandemic will presumably end. A similar rule promulgated by the state of Virginia is vague about its sunset provisions. The Daily Wire, which employs more than 100 people, has said it will fight the employer vaccine mandate, even though its co-founders are vaccinated and encourage others to get vaccinated voluntarily. The law says, CRS noted that any person who is adversely affected by a standard may file within 60 days of its promulgation a petition challenging the standard with the U.S. Court of Appeals for the circuit in which the person lives or maintains his or her principal place of business. A petition for judicial review does not automatically stay the implementations or enforcement of the standard. However, the court may order such a stay. OSHA estimates that post-promulgation activities, including judicial review, can take between 4 and 12 months after the standard is promulgated. Um, anyway, so basically they don't have the legal authority, and it doesn't seem like it would ever stand up. Now, since we were talking about taxes, I want to clue you in on how the tax hike is going to affect us. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to kind of just pull up notes out of it. So Democrats on the House Ways and Means Committee, which plays a key role in determining tax policy and other fiscal measures, are drafting a proposal to raise a $2.9 trillion in new taxes. So these tax hikes, which would occur over the course of 10 years, they were introduced by Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal, um, as congressional Democrats attempt to pass a separate $3.5 trillion social welfare agenda without any support from Republican colleagues. The outline of the omnibus legislation, which incorporates key elements of the American Jobs Plan and American Families Plan, includes universal pre-K tuition-free community college, a paid family and medical leave handout, additional health benefits for Medicare, and a civilian climate corps, whatever the heck that is. So it would follow Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. Um, the Democrats' tax hikes mark another milestone in codifying Biden's domestic spending agenda, although Rep. Neal's proposal did not perfectly match the commander-in-chief's preferred tax rates in some instances. The possible changes to the tax code match the overall framework of Biden's campaign platform. So, here's what we need to know. Tax increases. The proposal suggests raising the income tax, the corporate tax, and the investment tax, as well as introducing an additional surtax on wealthy Americans. So, with income tax, the policy would increase the top marginal individual income tax rate from 37% to 39.6%, reversing the cut enacted by Republicans 4 years ago. So, married couples filing jointly with taxable income over 450K, heads of households with taxable income over 425K, unmarried individuals over 400K, and married individuals filing separately with over 225K, and estates with taxable income over 12,500 would all be subject to the new benchmark. The proposal is in line with the Biden admin's desired 39.6% top income tax rate. Corporate taxes. So the Republicans decreased the corporate tax from 35 to 21%, and Democrats want to introduce a graduated rate structure that would cut into the profit. So a corporation's first $400,000 of income would be taxed at 18%. Income up to $5 million would then be taxed at 21%, and any additional earnings would be subject to a 26.5% tax. So Biden actually prefers a slightly higher 28% corporate tax rate. Capital gains taxes. So the long-term capital gains tax, which applies to appreciated investments sold after at least 1 year of ownership. So those earning above 500K would increase from 20 to 25%, and combined with the existing 3.8% surtax, the total tax would rise to 28.8%. The Biden admin previously suggested a significantly higher 39.6% tax on long-term capital gains and dividends. Your estate taxes. So the tax proposal also includes a 3% surcharge on adjusted gross income above 5 million for high-income earners, estates, and trusts. The change marks a significant reduction from the current $11.7 million estate tax exemption, which was enacted under the Trump administration. So, other changes. So, beyond increases to the most important revenue generators for the federal government, the proposal involves several extraneous changes to American tax policy, including a boost in enforcement funding, new taxes for niche products, and handouts for various special interests. So the IRS, the policy would allocate nearly $79 billion to the IRS for enforcement activities and increasing voluntary compliance and modernizing information technology to effectively support enforcement activities. The Biden admin first floated the idea earlier this year as a tool to crack down on tax evasion and raise an additional $700 billion for the federal government. The proposal also clarifies that no use of these funds is intended to increase taxes on any taxpayer with taxable income below 400,000, and we know that's not true. So forced retirement account distributions. Among the changes to Americans' retirement accounts is a minimum distribution for high-income individuals. Americans who earn over 450K in a joint return and hold traditional IRAs or both IRAs with balances above 2 million will have to distribute 50% of the amount by which the individual's prior year aggregate traditional IRA, Roth IRA, and defined contribution account balance exceeds the $10 million limit. So accounts with balances above 20 million will be subject to a 100% minimum distribution rule. I didn't understand anything I just read, so hopefully if you're listening, you got that. So more taxes on tobacco. They plan to double the existing excise tax on popular tobacco products, including cigarettes and small cigars, from $50.33 per thousand to $100.60 per thousand. Meanwhile, the provision changes the tax on large cigars from ad valorem basis to a weight basis at the rate of $49.56 per pound, but not less than $10.06 per cigar, while also increasing taxes for smokeless tobacco such as chewing tobacco, pipe tobacco, and snuff. The policy would also tax all nicotine products to match the new rate for cigarettes. And tax credits for journalists. So, among the groups that stand to gain from the new tax policy are local news journalists. Of course, they are. The provision creates an employment tax credit for each calendar quarter wages not to exceed $12,500 paid to local news journalists by an eligible local newspaper publisher. An eligible local newspaper publisher is any employer that is in the trade or business of publishing a local newspaper that serves the needs of a regional or local community and who employs no more than 750 employees. There's your taxes. Now, I'm going a little long, but I do want to go over this last story because I think it's really important. Um, a SEAL Team 6 member who killed bin Laden put out a tweet that went absolutely viral. So, Robert J. O'Neill was the SEAL Team 6 member who took out Osama bin Laden, who they claim was the mastermind of 9/11 attacks. I'm not so sure. I have my doubts on who all was involved in that. So, on the day after the anniversary, O'Neill posted a tweet on Twitter that went viral, getting 50,000 likes and more than 12,000 retweets. His tweet was 20 years after 9/11, the Taliban controls Afghanistan. The guy who killed bin Laden is on a no fly list. Now, when I first read that, it didn't register what that said. The guy who killed bin Laden, so you're talking about a SEAL Team 6 member, is on a no fly list. Why, might you ask? So, back in August, O'Neill claimed that he was banned from Delta Airlines for not wearing a mask as mandated. The ban came after O'Neill took a selfie of himself on a flight with a passenger and a flight attendant in the background wearing masks with the caption, "I'm not a P, letters in the middle, Y." A few days later, he tweeted, "I just got banned from Delta for posting a picture. Wow." A spokesman for Delta confirmed the ban to the Daily Wire, adding, "Part of every customer's commitment prior to traveling on Delta is the requirement to acknowledge our updated travel policies, which includes wearing a mask." According to its website, Delta requires masks for both employees and customers. Delta customers and employees are required to wear a face mask or appropriate cloth-based covering over their nose and mouth throughout their travel, aligning with best practice guidelines from the CDC. O'Neill's tweet drew scorn from the mainstream media, including from Dan Saltzstein, a New York Times deputy editor, who wrote, "I don't know this guy, but counterpoint, you might just be because you're not willing to sacrifice and be a little uncomfortable for your fellow humans, including that Marine behind you." Let's just take a look at what he just said. You might just be because you're not willing to sacrifice and be a little uncomfortable for your fellow humans. Would you not consider going into Abbottabad, into a compound where a known terrorist was hiding out, where one of your helicopters crashed, you've put yourself in harm's way to take out the person that killed almost 3,000 people in America? You don't think that's making a sacrifice and being a little uncomfortable for his fellow humans? You don't consider that? Because I do. Saltstein later deleted his tweet and honored O'Neill's heroism and sacrifice for his country, but maintained his criticism. "I deleted a previous version of this tweet because I broke my own rule about name calling. So let me try again. I honor O'Neill for his sacrifices to his country and his heroism. It's sad that he can't extend the same for the safety of his fellow passengers." What a loser. I'm sorry. Seriously, what a loser. So O'Neill has been a vocal opponent of masks. In other tweets reported by the Daily Wire, he wrote, "China told you to wear a mask. Look down. You're wearing a mask. I'm not. Make no mistake, this pandemic was sent to you by China, he went on, adding, do you remember the complete incompetent morons buying all of the toilet paper? They're the ones telling you to wear masks now. I'm not being rude, I'm just telling you the facts, he said. O'Neill also told his many Twitter followers, I know more about biological warfare than most of you. We were trained. These dumb AWSs mask do, or these dumb A masks do nothing. Nothing. And insisted a bandana does more harm than good. I'm not afraid of the mob, O'Neill wrote after facing backlash. Come get some. He also said in a series of tweets, there is a time to act. Who's with me? And I shook thousands of hands and gave thousands of hugs this week. I flew on some planes. I'll be alive next week. Now, I have to say, I completely commend this man for standing firm. And let me tell you what, the man who killed Osama bin Laden, I don't think I'd be messing with that dude. I'm just saying. I don't think I'd mess with him. But that's just me. I'm gonna see if I can maybe reach out to him. I'd like to just, tweet at him and tell him, hey, I want to tell you that I think that you are absolutely willing to sacrifice and be uncomfortable for your fellow humans. You've already proved that. And thank him for his service and for what he did for Americans in the aftermath of 9/11. That is real bravery. And standing up for what you believe and going against the grain, that is real bravery. These people that say they're part of the resistance that move with the flow, that's not a resistance. The people that move against the grain are the ones that are courageous and brave because it is not easy to stand out and be different. It can be scary sometimes depending on what situation you're in, and it can be lonely because people ostracize you, and it sometimes it can hurt to be the only one or feel like you're the only one doing anything about it. So anyway, just remember, the time to fight is now. We are coming to that point with so many people trying to take away our freedoms, our personal liberties. The time to fight back is now. There's no more sitting around and just putting out, your tweets or Facebook about how frustrated you are with what's going on. You have to start acting. So thank you for joining me today. Um, in the description is my link tree where you can find all the links to my social media. Don't forget you can still buy a t-shirt. I think that's coming up to an end. I can extend it, but you can still do that if you want to. And also sign the petition to protect women in prisons. I would appreciate that. And if you're a blind viewer, don't forget you can find me on Spotify, Google, Apple, Pandora, Anchor. Go subscribe, leave me a review. I would appreciate it. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like the video, share it with everybody, leave me a comment. I'll get back to you. But most of all, the most important thing you can do to help me out is just to subscribe to the channel and get your friends and family to subscribe. And hit the notification bell. That way you know when I upload a new video, which is Monday through Thursday at typically 9 a.m., but I think I'm going to Central Time. I think I'm going to move that down to like 10:30, 11 because sometimes I just have it. The software sometimes takes long to save and export and all that and upload. And sometimes I have to do it the very same day I'm going to upload it. So that may be changing, but I'll let you know. Anyway, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you back here tomorrow. God bless.